We're the Young Indy Chroniclers podcast, and we're producing a new feature-length documentary, George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age.
George Lucas was going to do this Lawrence of Arabia scale epic on a 16-millimeter budget.
You got a chance to have the same adventure making the show as what Indy was doing.
His stuff is really quite political.
You didn't think I was going to run, did you?
I learned that when George says he wants to ultimately change or fix something, that he was going to do it.
We built a Kickstarter campaign to support the film. Late pledges are available now at Kickstarter.com.
Hello there. Welcome to Force Ghost Conversations. This podcast is your home for cozy deep dives into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. This is your host, Anthony King, and each week I will be joined by fans, creators, and believers in the principles from the galaxy far, far away to discuss the thematical elements from our favorite Lucasfilm properties. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, your cozy home for deep dive discussions into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. And we are here to continue one last time for now our Maul Shadow Lord conversations. And we bring back to the show, you may recall from our episode 1 and 2 discussion, Daniel Noa from the Young Indy Chroniclers, as well as George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age, the upcoming documentary. And, we reflect on our thoughts at the beginning of the show, the season. And now that we have the full season under our belts, it's time to look back and reflect on everything that came about and look ahead to the future and what it could impact and what it means for Solo and all that stuff. So it's just a really fun and great conversation. We also throw in some nuggets about the upcoming Mandalorian Grogu, so you can get a little prepped for that. And also we hear some nuggets about the upcoming documentary, George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age, which Daniel along with Peter, was over in the UK to get a lot of footage for that documentary. So fun stuff in this episode upcoming. But before we get into that, a quick Cloud City Gossip. Boy, I'm really just stumbling over my own words here. Cloud City Gossip segment here for us. The news that has taken place in the Lucasfilm galaxy over the past week. And in terms of news, boy, not a whole lot, but kind of big at the same time. We did get the confirmation that Ahsoka Season 2 will be coming out in early 2027. So I know a lot of us anticipated maybe at some point even this year we would get the show, but we're going to have to wait a little bit longer. So somewhere around that Q1 2027 timeframe is when we will actually get it. So more on that as time comes along. And then also, at the time of recording this, we are about a week out from the release of Mandalorian Grogu. Do you have your tickets yet? You better get them, because it's going to be a great time. Star Wars is back in the theaters, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to miss out on this experience. So make sure you get yourself ready because, of course, next week, that'll be our episode all about not George Lucas' Lost Golden Age just yet, but we'll be talking all about the Mandalorian and Grogu. It'll be a wonderful experience, and I can't wait to celebrate a new Star Wars film into the theaters for the first time this podcast has been in existence. We talked a lot about shows. We had an Indiana Jones movie. And now it's finally time to have a new Star Wars, not a re-release Star Wars, back in the theater. So I'm excited for that. And I hope you all get a chance to go see it as well before we talk about it on the podcast. And speaking of talking about things on the podcast, this is a full spoiler discussion for Maul Shadow Lord. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go to your Disney Plus and watch all of it in its entirety. It's a great show, and you really don't want to miss out on it. Trust me. So that's all that I had for this portion. If you want to continue the conversation with us, of course, we're available on all the social media platforms: X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. I think I named all of them. Just search for Force Ghost Conversations and we'll be there. We also have a Patreon, whereas for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to Force Ghost Conversations related goodies. And we have a TeePublic store where you can get Force Ghost Conversations related merchandise, hoodies, t-shirts, pillows, blankets, all that kind of fun stuff with our logo on it is available. And the links for all these different things I just mentioned are in the episode description. Lastly, if you want to share the show with your friends, your colleagues, your family, your significant other, whatever you want to, spread the good word about Force Ghost Conversations. Leave us a review too on your favorite podcast platform of choice, and feel free to share the show around as it continues to grow the seats around the proverbial campfire that is Force Ghost Conversations. So let's get into our main topic discussion here with Daniel Noa. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, we had such a fun time talking Maul Shadow Lord. The season 1 may be over, but our discussions are certainly not over. And back by popular demand, we had to bring back our guest from the first episode of our coverage for Maul Shadow Lord. We have Mr. Daniel Noa from, of course, the Young Indy Chroniclers podcast and the upcoming documentary George Lucas' The Lost Golden Age to discuss all things about season 1 now that we have it under our belt. And we can look retrospectively back on what we talked about in episode 1 of that whole discussion here. So it's been a long 5 weeks. And Daniel, you've had a lot of life in between now and then. So I'm excited to hear about your travels to the UK as well for the documentary. But Daniel, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. And how are you doing?
I'm ready. Oh, that was a reference. That was a reference to Maul Shadow Lord.
The last
I'm doing
seconds
great.
of the show. Yes.
That's right. Spoilers. This is a spoiler discussion, everyone. If you're listening and you haven't watched Maul Shadow Lord, I don't know why you're listening to a show called Force Ghost Conversations. That seems like your priorities in life are askew. Go watch all of Maul of Shadow Lord. I don't think it would take that long. I think
maybe 5 hours at most.
Yeah, less. I think because it's less than a half hour,
probably
right?
20, 25 minute episodes.
Like 4 hours. I mean, at this point, it's probably like the length of a biblical epic, right? Like the 10 Commandments, the Maul Shadow Lord is as long as the 10 Commandments. Probably.
Well, you could argue that Maul Shadow Lord is like a biblical story of sorts, right? It's like an entry into the story of Star Wars, right? The Book of Maul, you might say.
The Book of Maul. It's funny because since the Book of Boba Fett, we haven't done that again. But
I don't think we will ever do that again.
That's a shame.
I don't think people got it.
They didn't. And I have to ask them, like, did you guys just call it the Book of Boba Fett because of the alliteration? Like
yes.
At the end of
First
the day,
off, it's a cool title.
It is a cool title. There's no book in it, though.
It's a nice chapter.
That is true.
I don't think Boba Fett's ever read. If I'm being honest, I don't think that man's ever picked up a HoloNet novel or whatever they got in the equivalency of in the Star Wars galaxy.
He watches films. He doesn't read books.
Has Boba Fett ever enjoyed entertainment?
I see.
Is his entertainment maybe just going to like the gladiator matches that we'll see in the Mandalorian Grogu?
When he was a child, remember he like snickered. He
my gosh, that's right. Well, maybe he's averse, or maybe he really loves going to gladiator arenas. Right,
yeah,
because that's where his dad died.
Well, he grew up
in
going
one,
there.
And he has this weird maybe push pull towards it because he feels closer to Django when he's in one of them.
Yeah,
I don't know. But anywho, I don't think he's an entertainment kind of guy. He's not going home at the end of the day and pulling up his favorite show. He's got too much to think about now on Mos Eisley.
I think when he goes home, he slips into his back to tank.
That's right. Yeah, he's in a lot of pain. Well, he's got to kick out Cobb Vanth first.
Yeah, poor Cobb Vanth.
Well,
I wonder if we'll see Cobb Vanth in the Mando movie. Probably not.
My guess is no. I'm going to assume that very little.
If we did.
Unfortunately, very little Book of Boba Fett will probably appear in this thing.
Yeah, but all of that came from Mandalorian. All those plot lines. Oh well.
You would think, and apparently Noah.
Well, yeah, but hang on though. We're seeing the Hutt twins. The Hutt twins are from the Book of Boba Fett.
I stand corrected. You are absolutely right. There, strike that from the record, folks. There is Book of Boba Fett. It is necessary to watch if you want to appreciate in its entirety the Mandalorian and Grogu. If you did not see the Book of Boba Fett and worship it, and you're not gonna get a blast out of this thing here. You're gonna be left out and be like, "What are these Hutts doing here? The twins? What
twins?
I thought Jabba was dead." And then you're gonna see another Hutt, 3 Hutts at least in this movie.
Well,
I thought that was that little stinky thing from that Clone Wars movie all those years ago.
Always love seeing multiple Hutts. It's one of the coolest things Phantom Menace did that they didn't really do anything with, because I guess in the Clone Wars they had the Hutt Council. You always love. You can never go wrong with a group of Hutts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in the Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon says the Hutts. It's like plural. It's like we refer to the Hutts. The Hutts,
the Hutts
cool.
base, right? It's run by the Hutts. Yeah, and we've only scratched the tip of the iceberg on that one.
Yeah.
And we're exploring a little more. And thankfully, we'll get to see that on screen in just a few days, folks. Guess what? Next week's episode is actually about a Star Wars movie. That's the first time I've ever been able to say that on this podcast. We started in 2021, and here we are almost 5 years later. For the first time, a Star Wars theatrically released film that wasn't a re-release is getting talked about. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm
That's pretty
excited.
cool.
I'm very excited for it. I have plans to see it twice already.
Just twice?
Well, I mean, I'm sure. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But
For now,
if it's good, I will see it more than that.
mm-hmm. Opening weekend will just be.
But I am
camp
hopeful. I am hopeful, and I'm excited by the fact that they seem to be hiding the ending, and not even the ending, but like
I think they're hiding a lot of this movie.
2/3 of the movie, and so that makes me excited. I'm curious what you feel, what you're hiding, why you want to hide it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what I've been seeing. I really have been enjoying the little scenes they drop, the tease. I've not gone to any of the preview stuff, but what I've heard, I like, and I'm very excited. I'm excited to see Star Wars.
Now, while we're on the topic, I'm curious because you're a marketing guy.
Yeah.
Oh, how do you think their campaign has been so far? Because it's been
it's
an interesting conversation.
I think my opinion is that in the last month or so, they got some feedback that said you need to keep this marketing campaign together. I don't believe that it was always the plan. I think they thought, I suspect they were relying on some sort of market research that said, oh, Mando Grogu doesn't need support. People love Mandalorian. People love Grogu. Yeah. And it was very obvious to me, even last year, that the company, Lucasfilm, was putting a lot more focus on Starfighter and promoting Starfighter at the expense of Mando Grogu. So I don't know why. I don't know what the logic was there, but I obviously there's been some change in leadership there. Maybe that is what led to the change. It feels like certainly since the Super Bowl and sort of that misfire of that ad. Because again, while I was certainly expecting a more of a tease of the movie, it's interesting that even now, even with them pushing this marketing campaign into high gear, they're still not telling us the story. So that feels very intentional, right? So that may have always been a concern on their part, that they wanted to preserve mystery, and that's okay. But and someone in the room said, "Well, we have to make sure people understand that this is a movie that we're transitioning into the big screen." But the Super Bowl spot didn't do that, and it was a great opportunity that you could have done what they did, made a custom gag, a special spot with the Mandalorian Grogu in the movie theater or something. Like I think if you're going to break the fourth wall, you can do so many things that will then communicate that and hopefully get people excited for this idea. Kind of like the one of the great trailers for Star Wars was the special edition trailer where they showed the TV screen, right? It's like if you've seen Star Wars on the small screen, and like that is a fourth wall breaking trailer. It's not like it's not really about the movie. You're not teasing the sort of movie, but it's telling everyone, hey, Star Wars is coming to the theater. So you could have done something like that. In fact, a parody of that trailer for The Mandalorian would have been hysterical, because
I think
it's
it would
a
have been
TV show, right? You only watch The Mandalorian on the home screen,
on Disney Plus, yes.
But now, and big, So that's
See
what I
again
would have
for the
pitched.
first time.
Yeah, if I was in the marketing department, that's what I would have pitched. Because it's exactly the messaging that we need. They've clearly gotten the message, and by the way, all this while they're laying, they're having layoffs. The company is really not in a good place. The marketing department, particularly, it's possible they brought in an agency to handle this marketing, and maybe that was done at a certain time, and hence the spin up. Because they really, I have a lot of friends there who have been laid off. And it's very difficult. These things don't happen in a vacuum. We as fans are always like, well, why isn't Disney doing that? Why isn't Disney doing this? But you know what? Like when they're getting ready to lay people off, or when they lay people off, it's as the result of an evaluation and a process that takes a long time. And so it should tell you that the company in the last year for sure has really been, looking at its organization, reshuffling things. It's very hard to do all that and then successfully launch a big IP marketing movie. And it's not unlike what we saw with Solo, where Solo was sort of underserved and then Infinity War came out a few weeks before.
Yeah.
It's not like they've been spending their money on something else. Devil Wears Prada obviously opened very well. It had a very good marketing campaign, but even that one was not a super long. It was not like an Avengers movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they've been neglecting it in favor of something else, at least in the short term. It's just, I think the studio's capacity to do the kind of marketing campaign that we are used to, this sort of 360, it's everywhere, is diminished. I don't think they can do that anymore. And I think what's hard for us as fans is like, of course we had it through the sequel trilogy years. We had it with the Star Wars story movies. And then we had it for like, not for The Mandalorian. If anyone remembers, the original Mandalorian got very, very little markening. I was working there at the time, and I was like, when are we going to put out the trailer for the
When are we going to push this?
But the Obi-Wan got a huge push, like a movie, right? The Obi-Wan campaign. And by the way, the most successful series, at least, I don't know about right now, but certainly as of 2024, the most successful series launch they had on Disney Plus. Certainly for Star Wars and maybe ever.
And it came out in that same like summer blockbuster season too.
Yes. So we're used to that for a show, and we didn't get it for a movie. And I don't think it's because they don't value the movie. It's that the company is not the same company. They've shed thousands of people since 2022.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Shed so many.
Right. That's teams, it's capacity, it's creativity, it's,
institutional knowledge.
Yes. One thing I've learned, we mentioned that we went to England and we interviewed some people for George Lucas' The Lost Golden Age. One of the biggest takeaways I've taken from this whole experience is that we think of these movies and this movie making and this technology, visual effects, whatever, as company, as Industrial Light and Magic, as Disney, as whatever. The reality, it's these people. It's a group of people. And they have skills and talent, and that's true in every department, in marketing and in production, right? And when there's issues, separation, people losing their jobs, whatever, that's gone. You can't just replace it. You might be able to get someone else. They could do something similar, but like it's a precious, precious thing. And we don't value it enough, and the companies don't value it enough, and we don't even really comprehend it at the level that we should. But when I look, someone like Paul Houston, who you'll see in the documentary, who worked at ILM for 50 years, as far as I can tell, uninterrupted, like how many movies that you love that look great are because Paul worked on them, right? Or a certain kind of shot or a certain technique or whatever. And I said, well, yeah, we have a guy, he's been here and he knows how to do it. He's been doing it, right? It's like going to a barber, right? Like you're the guy who can really cut your hair. And it's like, no, I go to that barber. He cuts my hair, and then the barber retires or moves or whatever, or you move, and you're like, I don't know what to do.
You feel lost.
It's the same thing, and so it's really interesting, and I think all the studios are seeing that. So I'm excited for the movie. I hope it's really good. I want it to be really good. I'm ready for it to be good. Like I'm in this receptive mindset.
Absolutely. I have no doubt that it'll be good, right? At least to my standards of what I expect out of this thing. I think it'll knock it out of the park for me. But I am weary and leery, I will say, I'm anticipating already the dumb conversations that will be around the corner that aren't even movie related, but it'll just say things like, this should have just been season 4 on Disney Plus. I didn't need to go to the movie theater for this kind of thing.
I mean, look, maybe, but if it makes money, then it was a good business investment. Like at the end of the day,
I mean, it's making more already, I would say, just by being in the theaters than releasing. I don't really know how the streaming model works for money, and no platform has ever said it. But as far as I can tell, they only lose money.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The reality is, yes, for the viewer, it's possible. Streaming in some ways has always been a great proposition for the audience and not necessarily a great proposition for the company. And it was funny seeing all the companies sort of chase after it as if it was going to be great for them.
This white whale. Yeah.
But yeah, it's possible that you could have stayed home. But the reality is if they got people to the theater, then they did their job. Mm-hmm. And I want to see Star Wars in theater. And I actually take something Jon Favreau said in publicity as confirmation of something I always believed. He mentioned that he said that he always assumed there would be some sort of theatrical component to The Mandalorian, and he thought it would be like something where you would watch something in the theater and something like it was I think what he was really getting was like maybe an episode in the theater or a premiere in the theater and the show. And I have always believed that the episode he directed in season 2, which switches to IMAX midway through, was intended to have a screening, whether it's a Fathom thing or a limited thing.
Or even the last one with Luke Skywalker. Like, how could that not have been thought of as being like this major fan event?
So the one with the dragon is my favorite episode of The Mandalorian because of how cinematic it is and how much I think it feels like Star Wars, while also not knocking off anything we've seen in Star Wars. Like it's all these things we sort of, as fans, like it's like Knights of the Republic. If you've played it in the Great Dragon Cave, like you have an image in your mind of that situation. But it's not like in any of the Star Wars movies, Luke and Han and Leia and this army attack a giant thing. You know what I mean? Like, whereas in frankly so many Star Wars stuff, and I'm not complaining, I love this, but like you often get a scene that is sort of, well, there's a version of it, it's similar to the Death Star battle, or it's similar to the Hoth or whatever. Right? I mean, and again, it looks really cool, but like we're seeing some Imperial walkers in the snow. I mean, it's evocative of Hoth and everything, and I'm very excited for it. But this was like, it felt like Star Wars. It felt completely legitimate, but also just like, oh, I've never seen that. Yeah, that's cool. And maybe we'll get something. Maybe we'll be talking about that. Maybe something in the movie will happen, and I'll be saying that exact thing. That would be really cool. Again, I'll like the movie even if not. I think, for me, it has to be a fun time. It has to not do anything to the characters that like break the characters or make me go, well, now I don't like Grogu, or what I mean, like something like that. Like, Grogu's a jerk, but like I don't need it to be. I actually require less of it than I require of the Darth Maul show. I don't know if that's a good segue, but when we spoke, I think I said a few things. I said, I want peak Maul. I wanted it to sort of do something to advance the story. I asked for a number of things, and I feel like I got them all.
Okay. You got them all for Maul.
I got them all. Got them all for Maul. Maul gave me them all. All Maul. No, seriously. Like, I am shocked at how happy I am with Maul Shadow Lord. And it's funny because I had a moment as I was thinking about it and, the things I liked about it and the story. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, it's amazing how in my mind I link together all the Star Wars that I love, and I sort of forget the Star Wars that I don't. And
that's healthy, to be honest.
In a way it is, but what it does mean is I'm not giving these people, these creatives, the credit they deserve. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, I love the Clone Wars. I love the, Clone Wars season 7, and I love Andor, and I love, and this is a continuation of the things that I love, and, great. Except, no, actually, you guys pulled this off after also a series of things that didn't love. And, there was nothing to suggest. It wasn't, it's like when you have a sports team, right? And like they've had a great season, maybe you're not so surprised when they have a good game. But when a sports team has had maybe an uneven season or a battle season or whatever, and they have a great game.
They have a rebuild kind of
deal.
Right.
But then they have a great game. Like, you have to celebrate that. You have to pop the champagne, and that's what that show deserves. And I worry, as much as people seem to like it, that we're not actually liking it enough. We're not praising it enough, because it's like, okay, you delivered on the concept, right? You did a Darth Maul show and it was good. You introduced new characters. All worked. It's even the ones I wasn't sure was going to work. They worked, right? You successfully introduced this character of Devon Izara, who, by the way, I am now saying, I am, the way I describe her, and we'll see if time bears me out. He's doing, I think, with Devon Izara what he did with Ahsoka. So Ahsoka, when she was created, was a character that a lot of people were like, well, if there was such a character as this, like, wouldn't I know about them? Why don't I know about them? Why, right? And
was it important? Revenge
some people were complaining, and some of us trusted them. And I'm fairly happy with what they were, ultimately did. And a lot of people are. And I think, because the thing with a character like Devon the implication of it, at least, of where it seems like it's going, is you're like, well, okay, if this character kind of becomes the kind of character I think they're going to become, like, how does this all work? Like, where were they during the original trilogy and all this stuff, right?
Yeah,
So you're opening a can that will bring a big bill for you to pay, right? A big storytelling bill. You have to pay this bill. And they did that with Ahsoka. Like, they paid that bill, right? I mean, there's some question about what was she doing during the original movies, but I feel like they've done enough that we really don't.
Stuck on Malachor.
Well, maybe she was. Like, we don't actually know. And it's like
assuming.
vague enough that we're fine with it, right?
It's a good enough answer for now.
Yeah. And so I feel like this is, unlike most characters that they introduce, this character will sort of require that. And I have faith that he will do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe from what I've seen that there's an intention and like that they have a plan for the character and a desire for the character, and they're going to do what it needs to be done. And that this is going to be a really important character for the next wave of Star Wars storytelling. Right. And I think we maybe said this last time, like that George did something similar, or he was doing something with Darth Maul when he brought him back in the Clone Wars, to be like, I'm resurrecting this character and setting this character up so that I'm able to use him in a number of different situations that I'm interested in using him with. And I think that Dave is doing that with Devon right now. So I just think it's great, and everything. I listened, of course, to all of your
Thank you.
conversations about the show, and I thought it was Darth Vader in the hologram from the mostly because he says "My Lord," and generally, he could have been the Grand Inquisitor. I would have accepted the Grand Inquisitor. I was thinking about this. The Emperor is called "My Lord" in Revenge of the Sith, so like, I guess I wouldn't have liked it, but you could have introduced that element.
That's right. It will be done, my lord.
Well, and also that's true. I actually forgot about that. I was thinking about Masameda, because arguably when Cody says it, or the other clone guy, he's not the Emperor yet. True. But Masameda calls him. Actually, he calls him Master. I don't know. I'd have to go back now. I'm not sure.
We have to rewatch Revenge of the Sith.
I know. I'm not sure if he calls him
my arm to have to do that
after he becomes, Emperor. But because I know the clones call him Your Majesty, right? Which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
I also always loved this is a tangent, but I always loved in the prequels when they call Palpatine Your Excellency. I thought that was cool.
Precursor. Yeah, you're like, hey, he's just a chancellor. Why are we giving this guy
Your Excellency?
Why are we like stroking his ego here when we don't need to? I will say Devon has been a fantastic character. I really loved her introduction and the slow. I wouldn't say it was piecemeal, but it was worthy piecemeal seduction throughout the whole show. So like, it wasn't like a full on episode that we're just inundated with it. I feel like this is in some ways some of the best, arguably, if that's the term, seduction towards the dark side. I know Anakin, the criticism of Revenge of the Sith is that it's like, it's kind of quick, right? Because it's in a movie, right? And there's only so many scenes you can do with that. And you have to tell other stories in that. And, you got to see what the Wookiees are doing on Kashyyyk. The novelization with Matthew Stover really solves that problem for folks. So go read that if you really have a bigger question here. But I think
it's a very different thing. I mean, Lucas had a challenge of, okay, Anakin is a Jedi at the time when the Jedi are powerful, with a great, and he has power and he has influence. And so what would tempt him? And Lucas struggled with that himself. When he rewrote Revenge of the Sith, like, he was really trying to flesh out that, and it works for me. I like the movie very much.
Yeah.
What's cool about Devon is the opposite, which is because of the situation and the story, she's at the low point. It's not hard. Well, it may be challenging. You might look at Anakin and be like, don't turn to the dark side, Anakin, right? It's not hard to imagine why Devon would turn to the dark side.
It's not,
right?
No. If she loses that tether, right? That's the only thing holding her down, apparently.
And I think you sympathize with her. And on the one hand, of course, you don't want the character to become evil. And I think critically, we have yet to see Devon actually do anything evil.
Yeah, that's right. Saying I'm ready is far different than actually like murdering younglings.
Or, but we I think as the audience have a hard time like telling her else she should do. Like what is the other path? I think that the story is allowing you, or it's putting you in that position of empathizing with her, and you hear Daki say, "Oh, we're going to trust strangers," or we're going to, and you are like, that's not going to work. It's like, so
well,
it's.
I think we all live in a jaded
thing.
world nowadays too. We are influenced just as much as the world around us, and a lot of us are feeling like Devon and like the current political climate, and just you have to consider like they are being influenced by the world surrounding us, and like what would draw a person to this, and like, hey, we're all kind of surviving.
Well, that's true, but I think if you look at even like something horrible in history like the Holocaust or something, if you're hiding from that, it's obviously there were good people in the world at that time, but I think you would be very shrewd to certainly not expect that every person you meet is a good person in a situation like that, right? Like you would be wise. Be like, we're not going to just tell people who we are, and we're not going to, open up to people. We're going to be quiet, and we're going to mind our business. We're going to get through here as quickly as possible, right? Like that's just common sense. I think what's great is, again, when you're in that position of being disempowered, and maybe this is to your point of how many people might be feeling at this moment, very disempowered, that something that promises you power, right, is tempting. What's interesting about Star Wars overall, and I think this show did very well. I love in the last episode when Maul pushes Daki towards Vader, because it's Maul being a coward.
Yes,
and I took that from the animation that was very well rendered, that he was afraid, and that is of the dark side. It is something we see. I mean, it's something about Grievous, Revenge of the Sith, and it's interesting that, and I don't know if this is on screen or in canon, but I've had the impression for the longest time, I couldn't even tell you where I got this from. Like talk about the Dark Lord of the Sith, whether that's Darth Vader or Darth Sidious, that in a way, when other people sort of give into the dark side in terms of, fear, hatred, anger, that it actually empowers them. I think I get that from Return of the Jedi. I think I get that idea that the Emperor wants Luke to turn, to tap into the dark side, to use the rage, right? But that it's a trap. That if Luke does that, it's just going to make the Emperor more powerful, right? And so I think there's a bit of a hierarchy, right? So I think that Darth Maul giving into fear is just making Vader more powerful. Right.
They very well could.
And again,
he's just one-handing this thing. He's not even giving this his whole effort, it doesn't look like.
And he doesn't seem to be hesitating, and he doesn't seem to be being challenged in any way. So I thought all that was very rich. But it also speaks to the weakness of the dark side.
Yes.
And that's an important part of Star Wars.
You're 100% right. And you say the word coward. I was using the word pathetic.
Yeah.
Right. Which, I think even George had said that about Vader, right? When he's like, if we didn't do any of the sequels, he would have just been this pathetic character. And then we made the sequel or the prequels to give more evidence to hey, he's a human that then did things, and now he has to live in this life of agony and suffering because of the choices that he made. And Maul is in that suffering. This is the suffering of his own mind. He's not in a suit, a mechanized suit, but he's a coward. He's pathetic. He's just trapped in this thing of his own making, set out on revenge. And it's like, well, what's that going to solve ultimately if he does that? And
it's funny because the tragedy of Darth Maul and even the events of this series, he's been cast out from the Sith. He doesn't have to be the bad guy.
No, he doesn't.
Right? He's not under any constraint. He could just be like the Jedi are willing to work with him. He could be like, all right, look, I'm going to work with you. I'm not saying he has to be
he doesn't have to be a Jedi.
I love the Jedi now, but he could be
like,
all right.
a member of the Rebel Alliance.
Right. I'll deal fairly with you. Right.
He could be a fulcrum. He could be an informer. He sees the picture, but he doesn't actually act on it in a way that's conductive to a proper way of doing things.
Well, and I think that again goes back to, I think it's Empire or Jedi, when Yoda says, once you start down the dark path, forever will dominate your destiny, right? And they're
more seductive.
Well, in the show, shows that it's not really Maul's fault. I mean, he was very young, and like he was,
choices were made for him
in some ways, abused and a victim, but he coped that, he did give in.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, his character and his personality is shaped very definitively. Look, I love the show. Maybe opportunity will be given to him more explicitly at some point to look, you don't have to be this way, and I never really had that with Obi-Wan.
So
right. And Obi-Wan he never quite, but there's that moment with them at the end. I kind of wish they hadn't killed off Maul, but what can you do?
I think they're regretting it too, to some degree.
Yeah, I think so.
I wanted to get back to your earlier point because you were saying about Devon could be the key to future storytelling in a variety of different ways, and it brings us back to the earlier conversation, I think, of the Mandalorian and Grogu, and maybe the more it need how much is actually kind of riding on it that we're not really seeing the bigger picture for, because this is a set of characters created for a streaming platform and Disney Plus that are now being promoted to the big leagues, the big screen.
Yeah.
Right. If the film is successful on many fronts, right, whether it be critically, box office, fan perception, audience, etc., that leaves the door open for more of these characters later on to make those kind of jumps into the larger sense. So
that's true.
Do you think that there's secretly they're watching this with that plan in mind? Because prior to this, you're really only seeing a Saw Gerrera, which is just a fun Easter egg in Clone Wars pop up in Rogue One, and then the other one being Maul and Solo, which is hey, whoa, I didn't know he was back alive again.
They've been doing a lot though of animation to live action in the last few years, mostly in the shows. Book of Boba Fett, of course, bringing Cad Bane.
Sure. And even Cobb Vanth from the books.
And then also in Ahsoka, I mean, look, they have all the Rebels characters. My goodness. Ezra and Sabine. And so, they've, and with Zeb, in the movie,
and Zeb
he was in Mandalorian.
Well. Yep.
So they've crossed that bridge. I think what's interesting, perhaps what you're getting at is this, that in the past, like Rebels, those characters were never designed as the main event. They were sort of designed to be a slideshow.
A different level.
Yeah. And so bringing them into, live action, they are very much supporting characters, and that's sort of how they feel. What we're talking about, assuming that they were we're going to make the next Dark Lord of the Sith, we're going to sort of introduce them in this animated show and then make them the villain of a major motion picture is a bigger swing. I would argue even than what they've done with Mandalorian and Grogu, because at least those were live action characters created in a streaming service and a very cinematic streaming service. Yes, you're making the leap to the big screen, but it's not as big of it as making that transition from animation to live action. However, I mentioned Starfighter earlier, which of course is scheduled to come out in 2027. As of now, we know of no Star Wars projects sort of scheduled beyond that.
At least scheduled.
We know Ahsoka season 2 is going to now come out 2027. We know Starfighter will come out then, but that's it. And I think you're right to say they're going to wait and see how this movie does, because I don't know what the magic number is, but I would think somewhere certainly over 800 million.
I gotta say, at least they're shooting for that to be super happy.
Well, I think 600 million. It's not a loser, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, that math goes all the way back to George Lucas, because he said in the release of Attack of the Clones, which was the least performing of those three, he was like, well, as long as we clear 300 domestic, we're fine. We can keep going. And they did, and they made 600 worldwide. And the budget for this is a little bit more than what Attack of the Clones cost, but not much. So I think if they clear 600, we can sleep in our beds. If they clear 800, it's like, wow, we got a hit,
that's
and I think if they do that, I would go, and I'm assuming you go to Favreau and say, how do you feel about doing another one? And let's maybe bring in some more stuff from some of this stuff that we have. I don't know if it's Boba Fett, but bring in something from these streaming shows from Ahsoka. Maybe bring Ahsoka into this movie or something. Let's make it an event. And it's the Mandalorian part 2, whatever.
Well, they have that Celebration London a few years ago, they did announce that Filoni crossover big event movie,
which I think is dead.
which could be dead.
I think
Or
it's
it could
dead.
be, hey, let's wait and see how Mando and Grogu do. And
Well, but
then
I think
we'll
that's
go
sort of
from
my,
there.
my point, because I think that movie was envisioned as the first Mandoverse movie, the culmination of all the shows. All of that has sort of failed at this point. Like Mandalorian show is over. We only have one more season of Ahsoka. Skeleton Crew doesn't seem to fit into this picture. So I think what I'm saying, though, is essentially if this is a success, the sequel would replace that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the plan, and I actually believe, and many people have speculated that, Ahsoka season 2 is the movie, like the storyline is what the movie would have been when they talk about having this big war between Thrawn because that makes sense. And I'm curious if Ahsoka season 2 will see. I mean, I understand people had their issues with the book of Boba Fett. I don't think that means Boba Fett shouldn't be around. Or Ming Na's character, Fennec Shan. Like those are great characters. People love them, and I hope that they don't just forget about them. So I hope that whether it's Ahsoka season 2 or Mando movie number 2 that we see.
Because if things that were universally beloved automatically got sequels, right? Skeleton Crew would be in production already with another one, and that doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, to your point,
soon.
the streaming economics don't really make sense.
It doesn't, no.
And that's where if the film economics make sense, suddenly we have a different conversation.
That's why I keep saying to the folks that are excited for this upcoming Harry Potter series, I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. It kind of seems like some financial malpractice on HBO's front to create the most expensive show and movie ever created.
There's a lot about that company that is financial malpractice. But yes.
That's why they've been sold a few times over the last 5 years and might be sold again in another 3 to 5. Anywho, that's a whole other conversation. But back to Maul. And I think there's a large part of this conversation that, intrinsically has to be tied to his appearance in Solo. Yeah. Which gives us so much of this, I guess, some of the foreground of like what we could have expected from the show or where we have a sense of where it's heading to. So now that we have the full season under our belts, I'm curious, how do you recontextualize that scene? And like, do you view Solo in any different way now? Or are you more inclined to watch it with a different set of eyes now that this has come out?
Well, like you, I think you said this. Like I always assumed Crimson Dawn is a reference to Darth Maul, and
it made sense.
I don't know if that was the intent at the time. I know, or I believe that the Darth Maul inclusion in Solo was not like essential. In other words, they were prepared to sort of cut it out of the movie if they didn't think it was good.
I wonder whose idea it was. Like, was it Larry Kasdan?
Definitely not.
John
Larry
Kasdan
does not know who Darth Maul is. John Kasdan may, and it may have been his idea. And we know from Sam Witwer that there was not.
They didn't know what lightsaber to give him.
Right. There were things about it that hadn't been thought through. And it's funny because
Ron Howard didn't know.
Well, it's funny because I'm a fan of Peter Serafinowicz's performance as Darth Maul.
Too.
And I would have loved to hear his voice, but he, of course, needs to be directed. And, if it didn't work, like, in a way, it's almost like, well, Sam should have directed Peter, to get the performance. But he did a good job. Sam Witwer did.
It exists out there, apparently.
I would love to hear it, just out of curiosity.
Lucasfilm archives next time you're in there.
Right.
Hunt down the lost Peter Serafinowic.
So many things I have to hunt down. Actually, I shouldn't say this on a podcast, but I recently ran into a person in the wild.
Ooh.
I won't say where, who claims to have all the episodes of Star Wars Detours.
Really?
It's
just on like a hard drive?
Again, I don't want to give any information because I don't want to risk exposing this person at all.
Fair. That's fair.
You don't know where I met them. I met them out. They could be anybody.
You could be making this up.
I could be making it up. That's right. That's telling the truth. But there's been an offer that maybe I could see some of these. I'm hoping that I can make that happen. In which case, maybe I'll come break my descriptions of Star Wars Detours on your podcast.
Sign me up. Give me the exclusive.
I'll just say at the beginning, I could be making this all up.
You could be entirely. You could just be pulling the leg here.
It could just be spinning tales. And in fact, if someone were to tell me like to have an issue, they would have to therefore admit that what I was saying was an accurate representation of Star Wars TV.
It's the impending sequel to George Lucas' The Lost Golden Age. George Lucas, the era before the sale.
Detours. Infinite detours.
Detours, Red Tails, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, baby.
But in any case, no, I think, but to your question, we spoke about this, how, and actually the way they end the story, I thought was really well done, because while they have a lot of threads left open, and I do think Brandon Lawson is alive.
I think so too.
They could time jump. And I think what they will do, which they would be smart to do, is do what George did with Star Wars, which was, it was always a jump, but not a crazy jump, but it was a jump, just enough to advance the story to where it needs to get to so we can continue. So I think it's possible then.
After reading Splinter of the Mind's Eye, I can tell you we didn't need that next for TV version.
That's right. It's possible that the next season will in some way intersect with Solo. I was doing some reading, because early press for the show said it was set a year after Revenge of the Sith. But once I started seeing Vader's costume, the Inquisitors, and like the Imperial ships, I started to think that seems early. I'm not sure he's got all the Inquisitors up 1 year. And like the way everything's set up, and apparently I was not alone.
Canon wise, it's probably true. Actually,
as I was looking there, apparently this is something that has been brought into question by many people, and that Lucasfilm answer has shifted to
interesting.
The early years of the Empire, or something like that. Like they've stepped back from a specific period, right? Which I think is wise. And by the way, something George always used to do too. Like
he didn't care about
the movies. I want to say maybe Attack of the Clones is the only one where someone explicitly says, like, it's been 10 years. I haven't seen her in 10 years. Right.
Yeah.
But like, otherwise he stayed away from that because he didn't need it. Like, it wasn't that important.
It doesn't matter. Right?
And it hems you in more than it helps you. The reason I say this is because, if we're 10 years from Solo, that's a long time. If we're 5 years from Solo, or like 6 years, it's different. Because it's clear to me that now that we know Darth Maul did not start Crimson Dawn, but what he's going to do is he's going to kill the boss. He's going to do exactly what we saw him do with the Pikes, by the way, which is great. That they give us the story, but in a different one, which is he's going to kill the guy. He's going to put the lieutenant in charge. He said, but you do what I say. Right. And so that's why Dryden Voss, when he says in the movie, you know who I work for, he's not lying. He's telling the truth. Right.
And he says, too, that they have like a loose alliance with the
Pikes. Also, by the way, maybe the most important thing is that Dryden says to what's Woody Harrelson's character's name?
Oh, Tobias Beckett.
Tobias Beckett. He says to Beckett, you know who I work for. Now, Beckett is not a high-level
answers,
operator, right? So he's suggesting that it is somewhat known, it is somewhat public knowledge, or somewhat known that Darth Maul controls the syndicates.
Yeah.
No, because he says, you know who I work for. He says it's Beckett.
That's true.
Now maybe someone's going to write a comic about how Beckett encountered Darth Maul one time, and so he has special knowledge. But I'm going to not assume that unless I'm told that.
That one-shot Beckett that already exists is not the best that Star Wars has ever made.
Also, don't know why his name is Beckett. Anyway, so this idea that Maul will rule the syndicates, and yet we also know he will end up on Malachor, which is at the end of season 2 of Rebels, which means that it's only 3 years before or so A New Hope,
roughly.
So that puts it 7 years after Solo. And I don't know, but like, I don't feel like Darth Maul, again, I don't think he survived there with no food, no water for 7 years. You know what I'm saying? So like,
with an Inquisitor hunting him down. Yeah,
let's assume. And in fact, it's possible that he was recently abandoned there, maybe by Devon. Right? I always got the impression he was exiled. The reason I say that is when he does get free, he does not go back to his syndicate.
No.
Right? So whatever precipitated that, he's been cut out from that. And certainly...
in canon, Kira's in charge of Crimson Dawn. throughout
Crimson
the
Dawn.
original trilogy. Yeah.
Yes. We don't know who she works for.
But does she have a,
Right. I mean, who knows? We don't know the story, and I'm happy we don't know the story. And I don't think we should be looking for the answers in canon, because I think they have a new story they'd like to tell. And I'm ready to be gracious with it in terms of the little changes they make, because I like the story and I think it's really compelling. If anything, again, like I think I got everything I wanted. I think this is peak Darth Maul. And this is the period in which, yes. Well, I just mean this is the period at which he is making the most impact, operating, affecting the characters and the stories and the galaxies, largely through this recruitment of Devon, right? And the fact that this is a real connection, a real relationship. I love when she has the vision and he's speaking to her. And it's like this connection has been made between them without it even being intentional, and I'm not saying that their connection is romantic, because I don't feel that it is, but sometimes people can have a sort of a romantic connection that is that way, that is like, you know someone and you have this connection, and it's not because you asked someone out, they didn't ask you out, or you didn't even have any sort of really romantic experience. It's just there's this undeniable connection.
Yeah.
Right. And that to me is what that was like. It was like, oh, like you can say what you want, you can make any choices you want to make, but like there is something between you and Darth Maul. This affinity, this connection, because of perhaps the shared sense of abandonment, the shared sense of, being victimized,
lack of purpose.
Yes, and I love that episode. You mentioned that there was no like long seduction. I mean, there's that whole episode where they're in the cave fairly early in the show. Yeah. And like, I loved all that. I love that they took the time to do it, that they intercut it with some other stuff, so it wasn't too quick. And I love that she escaped. I loved how it was. Like, she got out of it. It wasn't really in danger or anything. But that to me is where the seeds of that connection come from. This intimacy with Darth Maul, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's all right there. And you're like, when I say good and bad, right? Because you're seeing Maul at the height of kind of somewhat of his powers. Like we're seeing him on the rise to becoming this crime lord and boss, right? But at the same rate, what is a hollow victory? Because he does get this theoretically apprentice Padawan learner to join him that he's been, tracking down this entire time. This whole crusade is basically around this one activity here. But he loses everyone else around him. He loses every mercenary that he had with him still that was loyal to him. Rook Cast is gone.
Yeah, I was shocked that he killed her, but I thought it was good.
He's basically left alone again at the end of everything here. So even though he had things in front of him to be like grateful for, like people that were there to support him, and he's like, all he can think about is like those who wronged me.
But that's the dark side.
And that's it. That's exactly it. It's like, I can't see it in front of me, and it's like that patheticness of like I was saying before, and that cowardly thing. And even like I said on the episode before, but I'll reiterate again here, is like the dark side always is like moving the goalposts, right? Like as soon as it's that Palpatine to Anakin being like, oh, only through me can you achieve the power to save Padme. And then as soon as he pledges himself to his teachings, he's like, only one has done this, and if we work together, we can figure it out. And then eventually, like, he never had the answers, is my opinion, or he was never going to tell him. It's like it's that trap that he had.
This is all Faust.
That's right there for Devon. He's like, hey, if you chap into your rage and anger, that's the only way you can beat him. And then she's like, all right, I'm ready. And then he's like, whoa, you're not ready yet. He's like already moving the goalposts. And he's like, that's just the dark side.
Well, but that's Faust. Like this all comes from literature and from, ancient tales. Right. And so whether it's Faust or, the devil in different popular depictions, this idea that evil will always betray you, that it will offer you something and that it will give it to you, but not in the way you want.
The monkey's paw.
Right. So it's I think this was an excellent. It's why it's so good. It's again, without piling on, a lot of other people's attempts to tell Star Wars stories have sort of failed to execute this kind of storytelling. They have sometimes tried, but this was like really clear and really consistent, without feeling repetitive or without feeling like, oh, I'm just watching something I've seen before again, right? Which would be an easy trap to fall into. And I think sometimes people will say, well, is that what you want? It's like, no, I don't want that. I want something that is sort of fits in with this thing that I love and builds on it, but is also consistent with it. And this very much was that. It as I was watching it, I'm like, reminds me of like a really good comic book. This feels like a really good piece of EU storytelling, like maybe like a game, like Knights of the Old Republic, because it's not the movie. It's not the main thing. Like there's no Luke Skywalker type character. There's no clear Jedi hero, or also reminded me of the Darth Bane novels. I don't know if you ever read those, but like Darth Bane and Darth Zana and that relationship, this reminded me of that as well. And so I think there's a lot of rich stuff in the Star Wars bag that they're clearly being influenced by. And I just think they did a great, great, great job.
Agreed. I want to touch on one last bit here, which is the Vader of it all.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because I had a lot of thought in our last episode about this thing. But what do you think about his inclusion in this? And not just from like a cool, like it's great, like a Battlefront like kind of battle between the two of them, right? Oh, let's put these two characters and put them face to face with each other. But from a thematical standpoint, what do you think like Vader's inclusion and aim in this really is? Like, is there a larger purpose to it?
I think he's essential. I'll tell you why. I think we spoke about this a little bit. How the story needs to feel sort of essential and part of the narrative and everything. And this did. And so if Vader wasn't there, it would feel missing, because we've seen a lot in the last 10 years about Inquisitors and how this is all working. And I still think there are a lot of questions about that and what the thought process behind the Inquisitors from the Emperor and Vader's point of view actually was and why they would do it. And then on the flip side, where are they all by the time the original movies come, and are they gone? I mean, they're obviously not all gone because we see Marok and Ahsoka. So like what exactly happens? I feel like there's a story there that hasn't been told.
As far as we know, he's not green goo yet.
Well, I don't know. Well, right. I don't know what that is. We'll find out. But and there's, I don't mind. Someone like a Balin Skull, I don't mind at all, because there's a Jedi who survived and he went off and did things his own way, and all of that makes sense. I get why he's not in The Empire Strikes Back. But like, if you have these Inquisitors, why didn't Luke Skywalker fight 3 Inquisitors in Return of the Jedi? He's like, I need that answer at some point. But you and all the stuff we've seen these Inquisitors in, whether it was a video game or Rebels or anything, again, it's always like a secondary character that they're dealing with in the grand scheme of things. And so, and in fact, the Inquisitors and Rebels, they're introduced because I think Filoni said, well, I can't have Darth Vader chasing, the crew of the Ghost every week and going curses again.
It diminishes his power.
But when you have a character like Darth Maul, if you're going to say he is a former Dark Lord of the Sith, that he's important in that way, you have to have Vader.
Mm-hmm.
If he's found and he's spotted and we're coming for him, like, I think, and I there's a lot of discussion about different aspects of Vader. I've heard different places. I think Filoni's explanation makes sense, that he's like, well, Vader doesn't think of himself as Anakin. He doesn't really, make decisions based on Anakin's experiences. But I do think that Vader considers himself the Dark Lord of the Sith. And I do think that, there can only be 2. I mean, like, I love that scene in Clone Wars when, the Emperor says to Maul something like, I'm impressed, but there can only be 2, and you are no longer my
You've
apprentice.
been replaced.
Yeah. And so, like, that is true. And I think Vader, very wisely, like, he has to kill Darth Maul. Because otherwise Darth Maul has to kill him. Like, they are the Sith.
The nature of the Sith. Yeah.
And I think that, okay, Sidious has cast out Maul, but if Maul kills Vader, guess what Sidious is going to do?
Back in the good graces.
Kneel, my apprentice. You know what I mean? He's going to be like, I was just testing
Welcome
you
home,
the whole time.
Son.
Yeah. So like, that is the Sith. So like, to me, Darth Vader, and I think what they chose was like, Vader clearly, he doesn't have respect for Maul. That's why he doesn't speak to him. right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a perfectly valid choice, right? And I don't think has anything to do with Obi-Wan Kenobi or anything to do with, I mean, the Anakin, the experience of Anakin. I think that Vader embraces the way of the Sith at this point in his life. He's a student of the Sith. You know, he probably whatever the equivalent of Sith texts or whatever. I think he studies them. You know, is it to have power? Maybe again, there's different takes on that. They've never really come out and said. So I'll accept any version of it. But like at the end of the day, I think Darth Vader, to me, he is like the ultimate Dark Lord of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that means he's going to be like, you, sir, are a pretender. You will not have my throne. You will not have my title.
I've got to protect what's mine.
I will kill you. You know what I mean? Like, you're nothing to me, you know, and more so than just like a Jedi. Like, I think some people were like, well, Vader's hunting the Jedi. I don't think Vader cares about the Jedi. I think if it was just the two Jedi on the planet, he just sent 10 Inquisitors. He was like, more Inquisitors, you know, they can die. They can,
There's a top
if they kill
5
the
list.
Inquisitors, yeah, like, you know, and we know he wants Kenobi, obviously, but like Darth Maul is on that list because he is a former Dark Lord of the Sith and a claimant to Darth Vader's position. Right?
No, it's curious that, you know, you bring up the Filoni point of this, which is, you know, he doesn't make choices based off of like Anakin.
Yep.
But if Kenobi's at the top of that list, how can that like,
true.
it feels like an inherent contradiction there, as we know, especially from the series that we'll eventually see later on. He's like, that's the bane of his existence, is like all of his, if he takes out Kenobi, then like it's almost like this panacea, his life will be cured.
No, I completely, and I think that there's two elements to that. Number one, Anakin was already Vader when he faced Kenobi in Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then two, Anakin hates Kenobi because of his own twisted view. Like, if you look at the facts of what happened in Revenge of the Sith,
Mm-hmm.
he has no reason to hate Obi-Wan Kenobi.
He doesn't, but
from his point of view, right, that he, you know, that Obi-Wan was an obstacle to what he felt he needed to do. As whether he thinks about Padme in that or not, I don't know. That's only his inner thoughts, right? But either way.
Well, he's like, I would have raged out if I didn't see him.
Yes. And Kenobi, you know, put him in the suit. He wounded him. And maybe also I think that to whatever extent Anakin felt trapped, right? That he was this Jedi and he had Padme and he had stuff. I do think he blames Obi-Wan for that. Unreasonably.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. But
I don't think that he thinks about Qui-Gon Jinn. I don't think he thinks about all the details of his life and all the little things. Like, as much as we know the death of Qui-Gon Jinn is a huge impact on his life, I'm not sure he is as aware of that as we are. Because he was a child. And again, while he you know, loved Qui-Gon and Qui-Gon was this positive figure in his life, you know, we can say, well, Qui-Gon would have been such a great influence, or Qui-Gon would have been such a thing. But I don't think he wouldn't think of it that way. He would have no way to know that, right? And so I think, and we also never see in the Clone Wars, you know, there's discussion of Darth Maul, but we never see Anakin express any sort of like axe to grind against Darth Maul. Sure. The other thing too is in that I think you guys brought this up a little bit. I'm not sure that you brought it up as much as I remembered it. As I recall, Darth Maul was attempting to attract Anakin to Mandalore in the season.
Yes, well, he was, yes. Yep.
And he was doing that because he correctly perceived that Anakin
his vision was that he would turn and cause the downfall of everything.
And so he is more aware of Anakin's significance than I think Anakin is aware of his significance.
Interesting, which is it's a tragedy.
It is. It is, because it's like I don't think
I'm still dumpster trash, even though I don't
think about you at all, right? That's the great Don Draper line, right? He's like, you know, I don't think about you at all. That's sort of that's the way I think Anakin certainly thinks of Darth Maul. And again, I think Vader only in that you are a threat. You cannot exist. Mm-hmm. It is wrong that you exist.
Let me take out the trash.
There is no place for you. You know what I mean? Like, there is no role for you.
Yeah.
That I think is his view on Darth Maul.
Yeah. You got valid points here. The only thing I will add to that is if maybe you do consider, folks at home, that maybe there's some Anakin popping in here from time to time. There's a part of me that also thinks that, like, oh, I can do the thing that Kenobi never could. Like, this is that stain that Obi-Wan, like, he took out Maul, and I had to hear about that story for the
I actually think you're right. I mean, I think that could be there. I just think that would be from the view of Vader, not Anakin.
But exactly, it would just be a different of
like
viewpoint.
Vader knows that this guy, and that there's this pride and this, all of that is of the dark side.
It would fuel the dark side hate in him a little more. Yeah. So it's certainly more of the Vader mindset. But yeah, maybe the it's just me thinking of the cave sequence. I think in maybe it's volume 1, or I'm going to assume volume 1 of Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, where there's or maybe it's a volume 2.
Qui-Gon Jinn,
the Qui-Gon sequence. Yeah,
volume 2.
So I was like, oh, is he? Maybe in canon, Anakin has a few Qui-Gon dreams of the what if of what could have been.
Well, it's interesting because again, in that era of the EU, they were leaning into that. It's not something. Even in the Clone Wars, George had Obi-Wan have the vision of Qui-Gon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Although I think, did Anakin also have a vision of Qui-Gon?
I don't think he did.
He had a vision of his mother.
Yeah.
So like that was a choice. George had every opportunity to like.
Yeah, he didn't pop up and go, "I'm so proud of you, my boy."
I mean, I think when Anakin slaughters the Tusken Raiders in Attack of the Clones, and it's funny. I guess I should have asked Jonathan Hales. Like he's going to remember, but there's the audio that Yoda hears Qui-Gon crying out for Anakin. I don't think Anakin hears that.
He doesn't. No.
Right?
No. That's Yoda.
What I mean by that though is like I don't think that Anakin has a connection to Qui-Gon in that way, in the way Obi-Wan does, in the way Yoda does. Like again, he loved and valued him when he was a kid, and he's gone. And I think in Anakin's worldview, Qui-Gon's gone.
Yeah,
he's not part of my my day-to-day experience.
I knew him for 3 days, and that's it.
And if anything, one has to wonder. He clearly has all these issues with his mother. Is there a part of Anakin that resents Qui-Gon for taking him away from his mother or from not being able to free his mother? It's not something that ever comes up. But I'm just saying, I think the feelings, while we can all say as fans, Qui-Gon would have been a great influence on Anakin, we can't say with as much certainty what Anakin's feelings are for Qui-Gon.
Yeah. And how would time have impacted all that, right? Because as many of us know, like eventually you're going to rebel against any parental figure that is exerting some sort of control, like especially in the Jedi Order. Like how many Jedi eventually by the end of their trials are like, I am so ready, and they're holding me back. And they they all do that. Arrogance is, as Yoda says, is a trait more and more common among Jedi.
Even the older, more experienced one.
That's right. Oh man, I need to put on Attack of the Clones again. It's too good. It's too good of a movie. Well, Daniel, this has been a fantastic re-examination of just some of the thoughts that we have still lingering on from Maul Shadow Lord, a season that was spectacular, and I'm sure will be continued to, give more fruitful thoughts as time goes on. But, you said you were just in the UK. What's going on with George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age, if you have some time to give us some insights as to what is going on?
Well, we were there for about 8 days. We shot 8 interviews, which means one of the days we shot 2 interviews.
Burning the midnight oil.
We really were. We shot every day, and we rented a car. We drove. Most days we were driving. There was like 2 days we took the train, but we drove. I drove. It was awful. I hated it. Never want to do it again. But we got everyone that we spoke to, except technically Calvin McDougall, who we got in touch with while we were there, but obviously it was just like too late. But we did get at the last minute, and this is, I guess, I don't know if this is breaking news, but Carl Schultz, we've been trying to get for the podcast for a long time. I had no way to reach him. And, every piece of contact info we had would come back, broken or dead, or his reps were like, well, he's not with us anymore, And we were with Jonathan Hales at his beautiful home, which you'll see in the film. And he was asking kind of who we were talking to, and certain people. I talked to him, and he'd be like, we'd always be like, well, are you in touch with him? He's like, no, I'm not. I wish I was. And then somehow Carl Schultz came up and he said, I think I am in touch with Carl. And I said, well, would you reach out for us? And he was like, yeah, I could do that. So like 2 days later, I want to say we were on the train. It might have been the next day. I don't remember. No, I think it was 2 days later. We were on the train to go to ILM, We went to ILM in London.
Amazing.
Amazing, honestly. Fantastic experience. And we're on the train, and Peter shows me his phone. He's got an email from Jonathan Hale saying, Carl would love to speak with you. Here's his phone number. And so I said, well, we're like on the road, but like when we get back to the flat, call Carl, see if it's any chance. We've got like 3 days, any chance at all, and he agreed to see us the next day. And he was not close by. He was in Brighton Beach or nearby, which was it's not close to where we were. So I'm like, I guess we're driving.
Hopping on the train or an hour away, yeah.
And we were with Gavin Piquet, actually. It's funny because Gavin, and I'm all set up for the interview. And Gavin came to us because Gavin is working on Avengers Doomsday. And we couldn't go to him. And so he's like, I'll just come to you. And it moved, but he came, he was there. So we were talking, and suddenly Peter goes, excuse me, I have to take a phone call. And he leaves. And I was like, and we were both like, because in my mind, I'm like,
like, what's going on?
We have to take a phone call. Like, we're here. Who's calling? We're in England, I'm like, is your family? But I said to Gavin, who looked, I said, hopefully that's Carl Schultz. Like we've been reaching out, and I know he tried to reach him. I don't actually know, And so he came in, and it was. And so we talked to Gavin. Gavin, of course, worked with Carl. That was the other great thing, was we were constantly bringing like good wishes from one person to another. These people hadn't seen each other.
Back together.
Yeah, and they had seen. Most people haven't seen each other in 30 years, and they're like, "Oh, tell Mike it's so good to do hello from me," or tell
they lived together basically for a good 5-6 years at least.
Well, and some of them work together elsewhere. Like Peter McDonald told us to say hi to Mike Newell. They technically worked together on Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, right? Like, so like these people have all sort of like, they've been around, But it was great to speak with Carl, and we met so many wonderful like wives, Carl's wife, of course, Peter's wife is always a joy, Madeline. We had a lovely dinner with them. We did not meet Mike Newell's wife, but we met his assistant. And then we met Jonathan Hale's wife, a lovely woman who let us in. And this Jonathan Hale's house, it's like a manor, like a historic house. Like the door has this latch thing in the center, like you have to lift it open.
Oh, nice.
It's the whole thing, So it was great. It was like going to another world. We got so much footage. I mean, I think about 5 terabytes of footage. I had 5 terabytes with me, and I think we just made it. It was great. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many hours. We had many hours of footage. You'll see. So right now I'm working on a first look. The goal is to release it. It'll be the day after Memorial Day, because it's, holiday is bad for a press release.
Sure.
But it's an 8-minute first look, which is done. It includes footage from England. It's Peter McDonald, Jonathan Hales, Vic Armstrong, and maybe that was everybody. I think that's all the new people I added. No, Allison. Oh, that was another wonderful one. Allison Smith Murphy, which is an interview we managed to get. Allison was the visual effects supervisor on Young Indy.
Wow.
She works at ILM today in London.
Oh,
and after like a long in
what
between,
a journey, treasure
right?
trove,
Like this is not been there all this time. It's been there a few years now, but like, and we talked about that, and of course, just her groundbreaking work. I mean, Allison is arguably, and I spoke to her about this. I was like, you're the actual pioneer of digital effects. Like, you're not in the textbook really, but like you did it first. And we talk about the shot that was in the Scorsese documentary where they erased the actor from the shot. And I talked about how, asked her, I was like, what was that, conversation? Like, she says, well, George kind of just looked at me and was like, I don't like this guy. What can we do about that?
Enough said. Let's look into it.
And she, like all, good young artists, was like, we'll get rid of him. And like having no knowledge, no idea of how we're going to do that. And I asked her some technical
figure it out.
Like, I got to understand how you did it then. And basically it was by hand. It was like a frame by frame paint out using digital tools, which were rudimentary at the time. And, you create that clean plate that then goes under it. And we go into this in the interview. I don't know how much we'll make it in the final film, but like the real secret to the whole suite they're using is just this ability to composite digitally which means you don't have to worry about matte lines, and you can kind of easily move that. You have a lot of freedom, very similar to what we would have today if you were using After Effects or software like that. But this was revolutionary, and the device they were using was like a custom built machine. It ran software, but it was built for this. This is all it did. And she even pointed out, there was a period where we were showing her some of the effect shots. We're not really for the film because it wasn't set up right for us to sort of record it. But I did ask if she would come on the podcast next season. And if we could do this, that I would really love to do something like this where we show you some shots and have you sort of talk about like you're kind of doing for us right now, like the techniques of what goes into each of these shots. Cause like we showed her one from the pilot and she's like, this is really early. And here we were using Paintbox and we hadn't even like hired the matte painters yet. And so like these trees are just me like copy and pasting trees, like it's very rudimentary versus like once we realized, what we needed to do and we went to ILM and got Yusei and Paul and the matte painters. Now you start to see the style evolve, and so it was that aspect of it was very hard to do. We got some of it in the interview, but it's just, you really wanted to sort of be looking at it and ideally moving a cursor and sort of showing you like, this is what we were doing. And so she seemed open to the idea of doing the podcast. And so I hope we can do that in season 4, because I think it would be a really cool episode, even if it was just like a handful of paintings. Cause she spoke, about this idea of we're going to recruit, and they asked for volunteers, like we're going to go to ILM and recruit people to do this because we think the key is like we need to do matte painting, which they didn't know they were needed to do when they started, right? And they're like, we need to then use this technology to insert the matte paintings into the footage, and like, who can we find to do this? And, I mean, she spoke nothing but, such praise for Yusei and Paul, but also how different, and I don't even think I realized that, how different their workflows were. And how they just work completely differently, because she was like, each of them was very different, and Yusei painted a certain way and, and Paul worked a different way, and we just took what they gave us, and she, I don't know if it was on camera, but she was like, Yusei, we have work of his in this building on display. It's, you can't, there's no comparison. Like, because, we've obviously interviewed Yusei, and these artists tend to be very modest about themselves. I think they should be. But like, she's kind of like, he's one of the best there ever was, I'm
not wrong, dude. Yeah.
And it's like, it's easy sometimes for us to take these guys for granted. It's what I was saying earlier. Yeah. But it's like, not only are they good artists, but they were able to use technology to give their art an effect, right? Like a painting by Paul or Yusei, it might be a very beautiful painting, but by inserting it into the show and making it a part of the story of the show, you now are able to sort of create something that will move people emotionally in a way different from just the painting on its own. Yeah. And that is a very special skill that I think these guys are really, I think everyone, honestly, like everyone who worked on the show and these projects, even the special edition, they were a part of something very special. And I hope that's what we're able to bring out as we flesh out the narrative of the film. I mean, when you see the first look, and obviously anything can change, but I see that as the overarching narrative, the overarching story that we're telling. And I think you can see in people's eyes and the way they speak about it, like how excited they were and what they were doing. So I think I'm very excited for the film. I'm very excited for what we've captured, and we're looking for, hopefully we get ourselves a good distributor.
That's one of the next steps here, folks. Getting them a great distributor, and that's a fantastic trip already, right? It sounds like you have 2 documentaries, just with footage of stuff that you won't even use for this one, for a whole other documentary that you could use.
We're going to have a lot of footage left over. Now, I'll put this out there, as something Peter has been involved in several documentaries that have existed both as films and as series. Specifically the 1982. The Christmas movies, the documentary he was involved in, and there are other documentaries like this. So, I mean, we certainly have enough footage. I'd have to figure out how you structure it. But we certainly, if there's someone out there who's interested in it as a series, it's possible. There's enough footage.
More hours of burning the midnight oil to re-edit as a series.
Well, yeah, but if somebody wants it as a series, they'll pay
for the right price.
Network rates for that, and I can just do this as my job. So
that would be great. That would be great. And of course, too, right? I want to plug the Kickstarter here in a second. I know ledges are still available, folks, for this thing, and we did hit, or I shouldn't say we, but I know I'm a part of this too because I'm excited for this. Is the fact that over 50K was hit, which means there is a
you want to know where we are
eventually
right
a certain
now?
book.
There is
because of this. So
There's
for those other nuggets that can't necessarily fit itself into the documentary, and if no larger, longer, extended cut series is down the future at some point, then there's a chance it could appear in some sort of book format.
Absolutely. There's nothing to say. We don't have to cut anything out of the book, right?
More pages.
More pages. It's a digital book, right? Infinite pages. I will say, excitingly, we are currently at like $50,980. We are $20 short of $51,000. And I'll say this: if you're listening and you haven't joined, I mean, this is a way for you to pre-order the film in the format of your choice. Also, there's a tier where you can get the Secrets of the Underworld mini documentary, which I'll say, like, I've always been amazed at how much we've been able to learn about Star Wars Underworld. Like, people do know. Sorry for the sirens, I'm sure you hear. People, like, there is stuff to be said. You know, like I'm shocked. People are like, actually, I do know something about that. I'm like, what? I would not have expected that. So I think, because I want to say even Jonathan Hales, there's a story that I'm hearing in my mind that I know we got. I don't want to get into it about Underworld, and I feel like it was Jonathan Hales, but unfortunately, when you do 8 interviews they
all blur together to some degree.
It all blurs together. But I believe he spoke to us about the writers that were hired for that.
Wow.
And if not, someone certainly did. But yeah, so it's you can get all that, and then again, what I always say is, like, you never know when you get a distribution deal if there are certain, and we don't know when we'll get that deal, and if there's certain requirements or requests they might make. So, like, this pre-ordering gets you the version of the film that we want to make, that will have no compromises.
Yes.
And it'll be legal and we'll have insurance and all that, but, like, no editorial or narrative compromises that we might otherwise have to make for who knows why. I can't predict.
A special edition of some sorts later on, maybe.
But if I were you and you have an interest in this film, like, I would definitely try to pre-order. And look, if money's an issue, get the DVD. Like, it's totally, you will get the movie. It's a documentary. I mean, I love Blu-ray. I love high definition, but at the end of the day, if it's like, well, I don't want to, I totally get it. Get that DVD. Physical media, I will say, I very much encourage physical media, but DVD is a great format, and it'll look very nice on your shelf. So definitely jump on now.
Well, as I put my salesman cap back on here, Daniel, in hopes that more people do sign up for the Kickstarter, which, again, link will be in the episode description, folks. Doesn't Kickstarter offer plans of paying in installments?
They do. I think that's true for late pledges. I haven't really looked into it.
Yeah, well,
but I believe
someone
they
checks
do.
it out for us.
I believe they do. I'm going to say yes.
So if you do want that Blu-ray, there's a chance you could just put a few bucks down now and put a few bucks down later and pay it off.
Maybe you just got yourself a 0% interest credit card, or you have a cashback rewards card, and you need to take a trip, so you need to get some airline miles. You could use your American Airlines card.
It's a double win.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, and folks, that, of course, the Kickstarter link will be in the episode description. Get George Lucas' Lost Golden Age over 51K. Is there a stretch goal beyond 50?
No, we did not. We did not plan on getting beyond 50,000. I suppose we could think about it. We could just announce one, and there's no reason not to. I don't know what it would be. I can't.
Just in case, I guess, right?
Maybe I'll talk to you. Say, Peter, we should think of something. 100,000. What do we do at 100,000? I don't know. Maybe I did a Kickstarter in the 2010s, and it was with this writer who had some fan base, and I don't remember the amount, but there was the high tier. I don't think anybody did it, but there was this high tier you could do, and it was like a day with Disneyland with this writer. And at the time, Disneyland's a lot more expensive today, but it was probably like $100. So we're like, all right, it's $100 for them, $100 for him, it's $200. And it was like $1,000. It was a very high tier. It was like $1,000 or $2,000. So it would have paid for itself. And we're like, all right, so I don't know, maybe something like that. Or like if we hit it, but the problem is if a stretch goal, it has to be for everybody. So that wouldn't work.
Everybody gets to go to Disneyland with you and Peter.
Maybe it's like if you pay your own way to Disneyland, we will go with you, but we can't possibly more than the film, way more than the film to take everyone to Disney.
More like we'll see at the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art now that you guys got
which we are
membership.
Founding members of, and we're receiving communication. If you're joined, I know you joined, and
I did.
So we'll see you hopefully at the opening events.
You will not, but unfortunately,
Why not?
No.
Hang on.
Unless
Wait,
the
if
world
you're listening,
changes.
guys, if you're listening to this show, you need to support Anthony's Patreon.
That's right.
So that Anthony can afford to go to the Lucas Museum when it opens and provide you the coverage of this museum that you need. So that's my plug for Anthony.
I've sent a few emails to their marketing team. They're like, hey, just putting this out there in case you need some help.
Because you're a founding member, and you need the other one thing is supposedly, and I don't know how this works. We'll see. And maybe this kind of again not as a stretch goal, but maybe we could figure out how to do this. I think we can bring guests. Was Peter and I got the highest tier?
Yes, yeah. I think you have some extra guest tickets.
There's some guests, so I wonder if there's something where we could maybe raffle those off, or
you could.
Or, I mean, even honestly, we could even just say the list of. We'll take all the list of our Kickstarters and do the raffle. Of course, you'd have to be able to get here, which maybe not everybody could.
That's exactly right. Rent the private theater, do a little preview screening of the doc at some point.
There will be no preview screenings.
No.
Terrifying.
Yeah, it's with D23 being just like 2 or 3 weeks ahead of the release or the launch of the museum. I was like, well, I can't fly out twice.
When is D23?
It is August 11th through 13th, I think. It's somewhere around that range.
And I assume you work in an office?
I actually work remotely.
I mean,
I could have.
Let's figure this out because, like, I have an apartment. Peter has an apartment. I mean, maybe we can figure out a way to find a place for you.
I do actually have a trip on Labor Day too, so there's that complication in between there.
Okay, so you get a problem.
Unfortunately, I'm in demand all over the place. But you never know. You never know. Always in motion the future is.
It's true.
If I get a special invite, I might be able to say like, hey, I gotta go. I gotta see about a museum.
I mean, obviously, we have guest tickets. One of them could be for you.
That's true as well.
Gotta figure that out. All right.
All the fun stuff. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for hopping on here. Where can the folks find you in the George Lucas Lost Golden Age and Young Indy Chroniclers if they want to continue the conversation?
Check us out on Instagram at at all of these places, George Lucas The Lost Golden Age, and also Young Indy Pod. We are on hiatus right now, but you can find all our past episodes on all podcast apps, most past episodes on YouTube. Some are missing because I still have to upload them, but I will, I promise.
One thing at a time.
Our YouTube is monetized, so please, we do love YouTube views. It's a great way to support us without having to really do anything on your side. It's a passive income. But thank you so much. I'm Daniel Noa. You can find me at Daniel Noa _plus, like a streaming service. And I thank you for having me on. I love Maul. I'm glad it was a great show. You had a great run of miniseries episodes. And I'm excited to hear your coverage of The Mandalorian and Grogu.
That's exactly right. And thank you, folks, for listening to this episode. Guess what? Next week, Mandalorian and Grogu, Star Wars movie in theaters. I will be seeing it 3 times on Thursday. I took off Thursday and Friday just so I can devote a full day of just living at the theater. And I'm going to experience it. So by Friday, when I recorded our episode on that, I'll be fully fresh and ready to go. And most enlightened I've ever been at that point for a Star Wars property. I've never done 3 in one day. I've usually spaced it out over the weekend. But hey, it is what it is. I'm excited. And folks, I hope you're excited too. And guess what? We'll be back in your podcast feeds next week with a brand new episode, Mandalorian Grogu. It's time. Star Wars in theaters season. Let's do it. Hope you're ready for that. And until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.